I think I skipped on a few things I really wanted to talk about saving, and it came apparent during the break. A few people asked me some questions, and I realized that I skipped that. So I'll quickly go through that. So when it comes to savings, we need to explain why children need to save. And what we know is that when you don't have savings, that's when you experience financial stress. So most of us have assets, yeah? We are millionaires by Kenya standards, Kenya shilling millionaire. But many of us still go through financial pressure. Why? Not for lack of assets, but for lack of liquidity. You have assets, but at that particular moment, they cannot meet your need. So that's one reason why we need to save. The other reason is that if you don't have savings, and the unexpected happens, which always happens, yeah? The unexpected always happens. Then, if you don't have savings, you'll experience financial stress, but what else will happen? If it's an emergency which has to be met, you'll go into debt, right? And so what does that do? It's like you're in a hole and you're actually digging deeper. So nowadays, especially because of mobile lending, previously you had to walk to a financial institution and provide proof you'd be able to repay that debt. Now you don't need to do any of that. People are getting into debt very easily. You just need to do it using your phone. And these mobile lenders, they don't care who you are. As long as you have some M-Pesa history, you have an ID number, not even the ID itself, they will lend you money. So we have to teach our children that the way to manage our resources is to use what we have earned to spend, to save, to give, and do the other things. So saving becomes an integral part of it. Now, later we read a few scriptures that you can read to your children regarding these things, but it's important that they know if they want to avoid financial stress, then they have to prepare for the unexpected, because we know the unexpected will happen. So what are they saving for? That is one question that the children will ask. Okay, and I think I alluded, my daughter didn't know what she was saving for a very long time until she was able to. So children will always want something, regardless of what age they are. So if they need something that maybe the kind of money you've given them or the money they have earned, then, and it can't buy it immediately, that's an opportunity to teach them how to save. So usually it will be something that they can't buy with the allowance or the money that they have. They might need to save for 2 or 3 months, or 2 or 3 periods, depending on how often you give them the money. But it should not take a very long time before they buy it. Otherwise, they will lose the moral of it or the motivation to do it. So they want some snacks, but they can only afford one. Then you can tell them, for you to have this and this and this, then you need to save for it. As they grow older, then you need to give them more responsibility, to save for more responsibility. If they like earrings and jewelry and those kind of things, then you can tell them, you save for that, something that they value. It needs to be something that they value first. And then as they go on, you now can introduce other things. You can save, we can have this common goal. We want to go to this children's home and we'd want to buy this and this. So can we save towards that? As they grow much older, then they need to realize that there will be emergencies. Even teenagers have emergencies. They had certain plans, but they didn't go as planned. They are going out as friends. They'll probably want to use Uber, and it's peak season, or it has rained. The rates have gone up. They need more than they had planned for. So helping them to plan for those things. Of course, young adults, and as they grow older, then they will tend to have irregular expenses. Irregular expenses are those things, eventually they meet, but they don't pay for them every month. If you like concerts, they come once in a while, and they tend to be expensive. Then you might need to save for a few months to attend a particular concert or event or movie or whatever it is that you want to. And then there are major expenses. So they would want to own a car soon. So I'm not going to give you a car, you have to earn your own car. So you need to guide them on how to save for such things. So if they're earning, they've started working, or you are paying them, then you can guide them on how to go about it. Of course, the smaller children, we said, let's do the piggy bank, and then walk with them to the bank and let them count the money and give it to the cashier. Let them interact with the money. Then as they grow older or as their savings increase, you can open a savings account for them. And when the statement comes, go through the statement with them. Let them see, oh, you had 100 shillings, it has earned 1 bob. And then there's a tax element called withholding tax, and explain those things. They get to understand, demonstrate how things work. And then later, if they are earning substantial money, because depending on who they are, kids are earning, they are doing social media and many other things, then you can open a money market account. If they are underage, you can open one in your name, but it's specifically for their money. So you're only saving their own money in that particular account. And that will even demonstrate their interest reward much, much bigger. But the point is, when the statement comes, read it together. What does it say? The rates are going up and down. The return is not like in a savings account where it might be fixed. And I mean, how do you choose which provider to go with? There are 30-something money market funds in the market. How do you pick on ICA Lion or Sanlam or CIC? How do you pick on that? That's where her money market is. She works there. Ah, okay. Okay. All right. So it's an issue of teaching the concept and then doing it practically, and also knowing what it is. Now, when they have that money, and that's now will take us to spending very shortly, let them spend the money. Okay? Sometimes we don't want them to spend the money. Like, oh, it's growing so well, let it stay. But basically what you're teaching them is hoarding. Because what was the money for? It was meant for a particular purpose. So the world teaches us about hoarding, but when it comes to saving, God teaches us to save, but we also need to continue holding these resources loosely, so that if he directs you to use them for a particular reason, then that child should actually be able to do that. And especially if they want to give, and I think I had mentioned this a little bit. They go to somewhere and then they notice somebody with a specific need. If they want to do a generous act, allow them to do that. It will be very difficult. Demonstrate to them that sometimes they're able to do something because they have the savings. Okay? So let's say they are holding some savings, and then they see a cause maybe on TV, or somebody shares a story, and then they say, I would want to use my savings to do that. Amplify that lesson, that the reason you're able to do it is because you have savings. If you didn't have those savings, you wouldn't have been able to participate in that. So that emphasizes the importance of having savings, because then you'll be able to respond if God is calling you. Even to hear. You won't hear about giving if you have nothing, right? For us who are in debt and not having savings. Even if God is tugging at your heart, and there are no savings, you won't even think about it, because there's nothing you're going to do. So demonstrate that having something will allow you to participate in that joy of giving. Savings also teaches delayed gratification. Yeah? I would want something, but I can still enjoy it tomorrow. I don't have to have it today. I'll probably be able to even get a better deal tomorrow, because if I save this money, it earns some little interest, then I can buy a better quality, or I can buy a large number of what it is that I want. So generosity will be natural to some. For some, you really, really have to bring it up. And we'll talk about temperaments briefly. I'm a producer. Generosity does not come natural to me. I have to learn it. But we have other people, sanguines. They are the most generous. So they live and give what they don't have. So let them first of all do that, and then later demonstrate that, yeah, because you gave everything, now there's this opportunity, but you need to plan your giving. But it's true. So for some, you might struggle with it, and your children will be different. One might be this way, another one. So when they use their savings, and the other day we had a good example in my house. So my daughter had some money. She has a money market account. And she withdrew some money, and slowly, she was just tipping at it. Then one day I asked her, oh, by the way, what's the balance? And she couldn't tell me. And she didn't know, and she didn't want to check. Because she knew, I know I've been spending, but I really don't want to know what is remaining. And I think she might have been surprised, because I didn't quarrel her, because it was the first time she had some sizable savings. But the pain of regret was it was beautiful to watch. I was like, there's no way I would have taught her this lesson. My words would not have brought the same impact. But because she went through that, and she realized, okay, I should have spent this money better. So allow them to learn through mistakes. We tend to learn better through mistakes. The lesson is so painful and memorable, you don't forget it, as opposed to just somebody telling you, don't do this, don't do this. And again, tied to the savings, remember, if they use their savings, don't give them advance. Don't give them an advance. I am not going to give any more advances. I have given, I think, twice. That's the end of that story. Because they need to save for that particular thing. And if they don't have the money, then they need to wait until they earn the money. Good. So help them clarify their goals and get excited about their goals. One of the reasons why we don't save, it's because the goal is not clear. You don't know where you are going. You don't know, it doesn't motivate you. But if the goal is very clear, so depending on your child, they'll want different things. Me, I know what my child likes. She's a sanguine. She wants to eat in nice restaurants. She wants to dress well. So if you're saving for a trip, I know there will be motivation. If I'm telling her we save for a book, then she's like, can we buy an audio one or a video or something? You know what will work with your child. So help them clarify that goal. Paint a clear mental picture so that they move towards it. Now, they may save the money, and like what I've just shared about my daughter, but sometimes they don't end up doing what they want to do. And part of the reason we said is the advertisement all over. So encourage them to avoid temptation by not focusing on it. So if we keep getting pop-ups of new restaurants and new menus and, those kind of things, and those are the things we like, what happens? Then we'll want to go and try out that restaurant. So even if we had another goal, we are not likely to. So I know it's a technology generation, but you'll tell them, for you to succeed, you have to avoid the temptation. You have to flee from the temptation. So that might mean not exposing yourself to those social media sites. You can have dedicated time when you read about restaurants, but it can't be every day. And you have notifications when something new happens. You need to avoid that temptation. So stay on social media, stay off malls, anything that will make you spend. If you stay at home, you won't spend. But if you go out. Nowadays, we don't need to go anywhere to spend. You just order online and all that. Ensure you don't have money in your M-Pesa. Okay? For example, decide I'll only be working with cash. And certain now temperaments might require that you actually use envelope system for saving, yeah? Where you have money for entertainment in one saving, in one envelope, money for something else, and when you spend that money, then there's no more money to spend for that particular category. So here temperaments come, you really have to know your temperament as a person and also for your child. The other thing that helps, especially with those who struggle with impulse buying, is when you see something nice, teach them, when you see something nice and you want to buy, I need you to give me 3 alternatives. So for example, it's a nice top, yeah? I need you to get the price of that top in 3 different shops. We are comparing prices, yeah? So you have to make sure that you are getting the best deal for it. So compare prices, and then once you get the price, you need to wait for, now depending on, it could be wait for a week, wait for 2 weeks, and then if after 2 weeks you still want to buy it, then go ahead and buy. That also works for adults. So that stops you from buying something that might appear on the spur of the moment as a very nice thing, but when you stay 2-3 days, that craving is gone. You are like, okay, why was I even looking at that thing? I don't even think I need it. So we have to look for strategies. We call them cool-off strategies. You have to get out of that steam for a moment so that you come to evaluate, is it really what I want? And if it still is, then go ahead and actually buy it. Then, as they grow older, demonstrate what 2,000 shillings saved today for the next 5 years could mean. So right now it might buy you a meal, but in 5 years it could buy you a trip to Dubai because of compound interest. And then thinking of the future. And you have to show it, demonstrate it using actual figures. So those are just some of the things that we need to do with saving. We need to save, but we need to spend on the saving, or we need to use the savings. We are not hoarding, but we also need to help them get that clear mental picture of what they are saving for and let them enjoy the rewards and give them room to make mistakes. We have already made our mistakes. You can't stop them from making mistakes. They would rather make mistakes when you're there to correct them. Good. Spending. Now, sometimes we do well with giving, with earning money, with even saving and even investing. But then we make mistakes with spending. So spending is where we spend a lot of our money time. Earning is one transaction, it's put in your account, but you spend your money throughout the month. So that gives us plenty of opportunities to teach our children about money. So as you give, participate with them. And this is where I was saying the money available for spending, you can actually, age appropriate wise, you can tell them, this is what we have. What do you think we should do with the money? And you'll teach them things about, some things are more important than others. For example, if you tell them we have 10,000, we need to eat, we need to go to this place, we need to do this. What do we do first? Of course, the younger ones might think of fun activities, but as you'll tell them, fine, if we do this and then we don't have money for electricity, can we stay in this house without electricity for a month? Then they'll start realizing some things are more important than others. Of course, as they grow older, we said, give them more money to manage. Tell them, this is our household, that's what I need to do next. I know Bella used to do that before she got married. I think she mentioned that, something I really admire. So your mom gives you a budget and run your home for a month. Of course, you won't give them the first month. You'll give them maybe for groceries, then you add another category. And some people will do well, others then you'll need to teach them. So let them know those ratios we talk about. Giving, aim for 10%. Gross, net. What's your salary? Is it gross or net? It's gross, isn't it? So let them aim to give 10% of their gross. Saving, show them for short term, this is where you can save. Start with money market, savings account, treasury bills. You'll be able to use your money within the year. For longer term projects, you want to travel someday, you can save here and then transfer that investment. Once it's like 200,000, you can buy a bond which will mature in 2 years, and then you'll be looking for money for your ticket, and then you'll be able to travel and go visit where you want to visit. Taxes. Teach them to pay their taxes. It's a command in scripture. And it doesn't matter whether the government is using taxes well or not. That's not the deal between you and God. The deal between you and God is obey him. Pay taxes. If they mess it up, that's between him and then. So no tax evasion, no tax avoidance, but you can be tax efficient. The government also gives us room where we can minimize our taxes in a legal way. You save through retirement benefits, you can actually save tax-free money. You buy some life insurances, your premium, you get a tax refund from that. And the other one is mortgages. You get a tax refund, a tax relief on the interest that you're paying. Show them to pay their taxes on time to avoid penalties. The minute they hit 18, they get a PIN number. When they open a bank account, they have annual tax returns to do. Teach them how to do them. Investments, long-term investments tend to have lower tax rates. You buy a 10-year, 11-year bond, the tax rate is 10%. You buy a 5-year bond, tax rate is 15%. So you must know that to teach them that, but show them how the tax works. So how much money should go to housing? There are certain recommended rates. Unfortunately, I don't have Kenyan rates, but US, UK, they use around 28%. Don't use more than 28% of your income on housing. What I've noticed with what I practice with my client, many, by the time they hit 2025, they can start feeling the pressure. So I encourage people, I don't have it statistically, no research done, but from my experience, try to keep them housing below 20% of your income. Utilities, compare prices. Sometimes we just, this area, there is Zuku, you just take Zuku. Or everyone has a 5,000 package, you just take a 5,000 package. Probably that's not what you want or what you need. So compare prices, be efficient, buy what you need. There's a lot of wastage that happens, especially when it comes to food, where you just go buy anything, but you didn't have a meal plan. So part of it gets wasted. Teach them to plan for what they need. Transport. This generation that we have raised, as Bella has said, they don't know how to use matatus, but they know how to use bodas. So first thing they want to do is to buy a car. Yeah? And help them see that a car is not an investment. And help them see when you buy a car, the cost of buying a car is not the monthly repayment. You will need to fuel that car. You will need to buy insurance. You will need to maintain that car. Help them understand all that so that by the time they're making that decision, ask them, what else will be left? Will you still maintain your 20% savings? Will you still be able to give? Then probably you can go into the first car. Shopping. When you go shopping, what do we do? Encourage them when they can to do bulk shopping. Bulk shopping, I think when I started it more than 10 years ago, it saved me a lot. When I was learning these things and implementing them, not 10, probably more. So I always wanted to go on holiday, but I couldn't afford holidays. So when I learned about bulk shopping, I shopped for 3 months, but that shopping took me 4 months because the cost per unit reduces as you buy bigger amounts. Look at the price of Weetabix. The small pack and the big pack, and then you try to get the cost per unit. The bigger one is way cheaper. And that way, because every 4 months, I would save 1 month of shopping, I was able to go on holiday the first year. And I was able to maintain that. So bulk shopping works for us with big families and even for them. Let them buy the things that can stay for long when they have the money. There are things that have a shelf life of more than a year. Cleaning agents. And then reducing the number of trips you make to a supermarket or to shop. Like I said, you go buy things you didn't need. So if you reduce the trips, that will help. Those who love nice things, expensive things, brand items, that's a God-given temperament. You can't change it. They like brand names. But teach them to buy secondhand, thrift, help them to buy things on sale. Now, this affects all of us. When you go Woolworths, they have sale. Yeah? So we go to Woolworths to buy. What do we buy? What is on sale and what is not on sale, isn't it? Then it's not a sale. If it's on sale, buy what is on sale. Because that's the advantage you're trying to. So help them to look for ways to buy what they like, but at a cheaper cost. Shopping in supermarkets, it's interesting. When whatever is put within eye level, let's say it's a brand of toothpaste, whatever is put within eye level is what is most expensive. Teach them to look lower and above. It is the same thing, but the price will be very, very significant. You notice the basics are normally put very, very far to make you walk around the supermarket and buy other things you didn't know you needed. Nowadays, at least we have thrift shopping. You don't even have to go to Gikomba or Toy Market. Now we have stores in town that they put their clothes well. You'll spend very little time. When it comes to leisure activities, teach them to have leisure activities without spending a lot of money. Yeah? You can buy a pizza worth 2,000 shillings, but you can make that pizza with 500 bob, and it will probably be bigger than the one you bought and healthier. Teach them how to do such things. You'd rather invest in somebody coming to teach them how to make a pizza. That might cost you 5,000, but it will save you so much in the long run. Insurances. Sometimes we buy insurance to get rid of the insurance agent. That's not a wise financial decision. Know what you're buying. If you don't understand it, don't do it to please someone or to chase somebody away. And shop around for whatever financial products you need. Workers. We've raised our kids with house girls and all that. they don't see how when they move out, they will be able to wash their own clothes, to clean their own house. Nothing wrong if they can afford it, but also teach them how they can work together with other people and share the cost of doing such things. So in spending, there is so much to do. But as they do all that, help them establish spending categories and help them shop within those categories. Help them learn how to negotiate. And for some personalities, it's easy to negotiate. Some of us, we don't know how to negotiate. If I would rather buy something in a supermarket than anywhere I have to negotiate. Because when they tell me, we unataka kununua pesa ngapi, I always tell them a higher price than they wanted to quote. So I end up buying even more than, I have no way of gauging that. So that doesn't work for me. But there are those who are very good at it. But even as they negotiate, teach them to be respectful to other people. So they're not just trying to twist and to make advantage of everyone. Help them determine the value and be comfortable to walk away. They don't have to make the other person go out of business. So I think there's a lot we can do, especially with spending. But that means going with them or sitting down with them if we are doing online shopping and showing them all these things we are talking about, comparing and all that. So, do we give them a credit card or not? Many of you are saying no. Let them use a debit card. What about those who want to send our kids abroad? And you must have a credit score to even rent a house. How will they learn? There's nothing wrong with a credit card. But if you can't manage it, then you have no business handling it. But I would rather you teach them how to use it, and then they know, or if they decide this thing is not for me, as opposed to staying away and run into debt later when they use that credit card, right? So this is what we recommend. Credit card, you get them a credit card in your own name, okay? But they are the ones who are spending on it so that you can teach them, so that you see how they are spending. So they should have categories. So they are only making advance payments because they have saved for those expenditures. Yeah? So let them use that first. It's their money, it's not your money. You have a way of getting the money from you. So especially when they're still working and you have those options with money, you have access to their money. And then teach them how to do it. So we normally say there's nothing wrong with having a credit card if you have the discipline to pay off everything at the end of the month. Demonstrate to them how long it takes to pay a debt if you don't pay it. And you just make those minimum expenses. So a credit card will be useful if they are paying at the end of every month, and if they are spending within their plan. Remember, they had budgeted for clothes, it is 2,000 shillings. So they're only spending 2,000. It's acting like a debit card. But we know that sometimes they might need to use credit cards. So they would rather practice now than later. But of course, like I said, let's use cash as much as we can, because we know we might not have that option in a few years. I would consider probably those in high school, those who are earning some sizable amount of money as they go to adulthood. Remember, it's in your name, so it's not in their name. It is in your name. Yeah.
Another country of 28% or less of our income should go to housing. Does that include rent, food, electricity, water?
That's housing only.
Like
so that could be mortgage, could be rent, house insurance, anything that has to do with the house itself, maintenance and all that.
So on the same one, if for example I'm paid 500,000 net, and you talked about a 20% for the Kenyan market, is it really okay to pay 100K for rent?
Not necessarily. You see, remember, it's your need. It's what you need, yeah? If I'm single, I need a small house. It might not cost me much. But it also depends on the location, where I want to live. So these are just guidelines. If you're earning 500,000, Yeah, you could spend 100 on housing, especially if you have a mortgage. You're buying your own house. And it also depends with why you are spending it, right? So let me give an example. If you're a doctor and you work a number of hospitals, you might not be able to live very far from town where rent could be cheaper. But because of your work, you might actually want to live nearer the hospital or the hospitals where you work, and the rent there probably it's slightly higher. And what that will do, you'll probably be valuing time, quality of life over standard of living. So you want to have time to take your kids to school, run to the doctor, but should you need to attend to patients, you are also able to do that. I'm not saying you do that for the rest of your working life. It might be for a season, and later now you are able to do something else. So it depends, and that's why we say it's just a guideline, but normally you'll need to get what you need. So if you're earning 500, please don't go looking for a 100,000 house rent. It's not a blanket approval. So, debt management.
Still on the same, there's a saying that sometimes you combine the cost of housing and transport. So if I'm going to town every day and I leave, if I take a place that charges me, it's around 20% of my salary, but the transport is very high, then it may make sense to move to a place where the transport is slightly lower, but the rent may be higher. There's that dynamics of transport, time, and housing, and also schooling.
Yes, yeah. So a number of people will decide where they live, either based on where they work or where the children go to school.
For me, I'd add a third dynamic to that, other than rent and transport. It's also time, because time is money. You can't stay in a place where it takes you 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. If you calculate that over time, and depending on what you value as time in terms of if you are to cost your time, maybe in an hour, you'd be able to make 2,000. So in a day, you'd be losing 4 times, say that's 8,000. Multiply that by the month, you'd see how much time you're losing just in traffic or traveling to work and from work every day.
And as you discuss all these things, remember how we defined what we want when we are 85. So if I value family, I want to raise my children to be something, I'll need to be there, isn't it? So I could pay higher rent, which will allow me time to drop them to school and interact with them at that point, as opposed to pay very low rent, but I leave before they wake up, I come back after they are asleep. So remember, as we discuss all those things, you have to paint that vision. What do I want with my life? And so we are working towards that. But also remember, I gave the order of using money. So you give first, you save and invest, taxes will be taken. If you have debt, it's also taken before to a large extent, and you need to pay your debts. So you're living on what remains. You're not starting with looking for a house and then, save what remains. So you first take care of the basics, then what remains will actually guide you on what you can afford. So debt management, what did we learn about debt when we started working? What did your parents, because we all say my parents told me this. What did they tell you? Or when you started working, what was the first thing you did? Join a circle, isn't it? So that's what they say. First thing you do is to join a circle. And you should always have a loan. So that's what they say. Now, when it comes to biblical principles about managing money, there's nothing positive God talks about debt. Nothing. He doesn't say it's a sin, but he says you become the slave to the lender. My people will be lenders and not borrowers. But why is it that we do it the other way around? Why is it even we have Christian organizations setting up savings and credit companies to encourage people to borrow? My short answer to this, and I've worked with clients earning little and a lot of money. I have one client who works with one of these international organizations, probably earns slightly more than $1 million. She always borrows. So I asked her, why are you borrowing? She borrows to invest. She told me, because if I don't, I won't even know where the money went. So I asked her, would you teach your child that when they start working, they should always borrow to invest? Now, borrowing is usually a spiritual issue. Just like all money issues, they are all spiritual issues. Why are you borrowing? So in that particular case, if we take her story to assume it's the only thing, she doesn't want to put in the effort to discipline herself to do the right thing. It's easier to borrow and pay someone than to actually save. The world teaches us to use other people's money. God tells us, avoid use of debt. So, some of us will need to unlearn what we've learned and learn what God's word says about debt so that we can pass the right message. But from my experience working with clients, many of them, they were told, first thing you do, join a circle. So we get into this cycle of debt. It becomes very, very difficult to live. And that cycle of debt will affect how much you can save, it will affect how much you can give, and it will even affect how you can respond to God's calling. If he's calling you to do something else, and you have debt, you will have to pay off your debts first, isn't it? You won't be able to respond to what he's asking you. So teach them compounding interest. You saw that compounding interest we did? The interest you earn when it comes to debt is the interest you pay. So when you take debt, compounding works against you. So just go to Excel, pick debt amortization or loan amortization template. It's there. Show them if we borrow this money and this is how much we pay per month, what will be the actual cost of that debt? Most people, when you take a mortgage for 15 to 20 years and you pay it until end of those period, well, you walk away with one house, you'll have bought the bank how many houses? 2 houses. So demonstrate that. For those who will probably use HELB, Higher Education Loans Board, demonstrate to them what that means. In terms of you'll borrow this amount of money, and then immediately after you leave, they give you a grace period of 6 months. Then after that, it starts earning interest. How long will it take you? So let them know the time and the cost of debt, but you have to demonstrate it to them. Again, we go back to temperaments. It's easier for some temperaments to borrow. It's harder for others. So if your child has that temperament that makes them prone to borrowing, then you need to show them how they need to counter it. They'll also tend to be impulsive in terms of buying. They'll want to want nice things in life, so they'll want things that they probably cannot afford. Then you really have to draw them back. So, yes.
You've made a statement there that has just really made me pause. The compounding interest you would get from saving over time is the reverse for debt. But are you sure you will get the same item, let's say over that 15 years or 10 years that you had that mortgage at that time? Because there's also what you can get now, will it be available at that price 10, 15 years?
What makes you think it will not be available?
Just maybe from your experience. So
No,
just giving an
that's
example.
what most people think. That's why people go into debt. They're like, oh, if I
Yes.
don't buy this piece of land, in the next 5 years, it will be unaffordable.
That's what I was wondering, because let's say, especially for assets like land and houses, the reason why many of us will think of getting that mortgage or that loan is because maybe that piece of land at this time, or let's say 10 years ago, or that house was 3 million. But now when you check what that house is 10 years, it's gone to 15 million.
Okay.
Yeah. So
What
but
was
maybe
your
breaking that
income
down.
10 years ago?
Oh, not much.
What's your income today? So that's a case of selective. We sometimes we tend to be very optimistic about something. This is actually what we do. When we're investing in something, we tend to be very optimistic about it. Yeah? That land you're borrowing for, you're very optimistic in 5 years, it'll double, very optimistic. But when you think about income, you think, no, I don't think I'll be able to afford it. So that's It's an assumption you have made that my income won't grow to enable me to buy land at that point. Now, interestingly, I've not had many examples, but one of the clients I'm working with was just telling me exactly that. She's 65. So many years ago, she really wanted a house in Kilimani area. She couldn't even raise the deposit. So she ended up buying a house in South B. Later, now she lives in Kilimani. She bought that house at 25 million. Then those houses were 5 million. She bought it at 25 million. What does that mean? You can, isn't it? You can. Her income grew and she could afford it then. You probably you want something you cannot afford. That's the case, yeah? And there's nothing wrong with desiring something. But if you can't afford it, then wait until when you can afford it. It's a lot of assumptions. You assume, I usually say, one day I want to do research on why Kenyans invest the way they invest. And I understand part of it. I'm from Central. When the Mzungu came, he took land from us. Not from us, he took land from that generation. I don't know which one amongst those who are paraded here. So immediately he left, everybody was like, I need a piece of land, isn't it? But I never lost any piece of land. Why am I afraid that? So that generation at that time, they were like, if you don't get a piece of land now, you'll never be able to get land. 50 years, we are saying the same thing. But we are still buying land. And our children, they will still have land to buy. Do you trust that God will be there to help you get what you want? Have you assumed he can help you today, but he won't be there? Debt is a spiritual problem. It's lack of trust. We don't have delayed self-control, delayed gratification. And we don't even want to give God an opportunity to provide. We're like, okay, I don't trust you. Let me do it while I can. I probably opened a Pandora box.
Okay. I have two questions. So the first one is the issue about SACCO. That one has shocked me because... So I'm wondering, because SACCO, you're borrowing against your savings. You'll have first saved, and then they tell you you can borrow like, okay, 2 times of what you've saved. So I'm just wondering, is that so wrong? Like, because you've saved, or are we just saying like SACCO is a bad idea?
No, I didn't say SACCO is a bad idea. Actually, maybe the one statement I have not made, there's good and bad debt. There are very few good debts. I usually say, who are in the real business of lending? Who are good in lending? Banks, isn't it? Anytime you want to take a debt, walk with your proposal to the bank and tell them this is what I want to do. If they say they will lend you money, you don't have to borrow from them. Go and borrow elsewhere. But if they don't approve your debt, believe me, that's not a good debt. Those are the experts in. That's why we form SACCOs, because SACCOs don't ask you what you want to do with money. The main reason why all of us are in SACCOs is because we'll circumvent that event. They don't care what you're doing. Okay, they encourage you to borrow for right reasons, but they don't scrutinize what you're going to do with it. For me, there are very few good debts. The one is a reasonable mortgage, not just any mortgage, a reasonable mortgage. Most of the others, they can wait. It's just that you want it now instead of working for it. So it's a question of, do you want your children to be builders of wealth or spenders? When you put money in a SACCO, why do we join SACCOs? To save? No. We join SACCOs because there's an opportunity to borrow. So we condition our minds that anything I'll ever want to do, I can actually borrow. But you end up paying for the same thing, full price, plus interest. Why can't you save in advance? No, you won't even save in advance. I demonstrated compounding interest, isn't it? You'll save a part of it, and then the balance will come from compound interest. Now, debt will hold you from serving God. Yeah? You won't be able to give, you won't save, and you remain in that cycle. No one got rich because of the debts they took. I don't think anyone ever did. Then that business would work for some time and then stop. But we are still in that. So SACCO, I can use SACCO as a diversification tool, but not the means through which I will receive my goals. Because first, God's word says, a borrower is a slave to the lender. You are bought with a price, should not be. We should not be slaves to anything else. 2, no, let me not say that. Okay. What I wanted to say is, what exactly, I like asking, because many of the people will borrow to buy land, to pay school fees. What else? Where else do you borrow? To live above their standard, what they can afford. You're just breaking one rule after the other, after the other, after the other. So we're talking of earning before we spend. So you need to spend with cash money. Earn it first, then buy. If you're afraid you won't get it, then you've said God will not be able to help you. I like giving this example. When I was learning these things, I was like, okay, I'll try practice them. So there's this time, what I needed were curtains. I didn't need money. I moved into a house, my old curtains could not fit in the new curtains. Then I said, okay, I'll ask God for curtains. I prayed, they didn't land the following day. Over a period of time, a friend of mine was relocating. She was in Tanzania, she was going for her master's in UK. She writes to me, she asked me, are you the one who has this color of seats? I was like, yeah. Okay, I land in your place as I come from Tanzania. She gave me curtains that fit those windows perfectly. Like they were made for that house. Then I remember, I asked for curtains, I didn't ask for shears. Then I went back to pray. I'm like, God, okay, I forgot to ask for this. After like 3 weeks, she calls me. She's like, I forgot to leave you with the shears. I remember my daughter was like around 6 years then. When that one works, I was like, this thing really works. So my daughter was complaining, all her friends are flower girls. But her, she's not been a flower girl. I remember we started praying. Within 1.5 years, she was in 3 weddings. Until I was like, okay, this is becoming expensive for me. What am I saying? When your children need something, what do they do? And then what do you do? And? So when we need something, what are we supposed to do? But what we do, we don't ask. We go and, if you read Matthew 6:24-33, it says, seek first the kingdom of God. And the rest? What do? We seek first the things. We do what we don't have to do. Because he says they will be added. But now we put our sweat and our everything. We're just working too hard for things probably either we don't need. And now as I work with clients, many of them, they're like, yeah, I bought these investments. They've not helped me. They've never helped me. Nothing driven by fear ends up being a good decision. So if the drive behind, the motivation behind what you're doing is fear, think again. So, reasonable mortgage is what I consider good debt. Teach them that. And we say reasonable. You don't buy a house you don't need, a house you can't afford, a house you'll end up paying for the rest of your working life, and you won't have money to invest for other things. Business loans, like we said, go to the bank. If they tell you they will lend you, it's a good business idea. It can pay for itself. If not, please don't. Credit card, we said, use it for pre-planned expenses, track your spending, and pay the balance in full at the end of the month. So, this is for the adults. If you're in debt, then now what happens? Yes, that's actually the first step. Look at where you are and say, I have these debts. List them from the smallest to the biggest. Then purpose not to go to take more debt. But before you do that, you have to find out where are you going into debt. Is it that your expenses are more than your income? If they are, then you have to look where you can make savings so that your expenses are within your income. Because if you don't, then things have to be done. So you have to relook at your budget. Then try and make some savings, even if it's 1,000 shillings per month, and start attacking the smallest debt. Once you repay the small debt, hopefully your income is growing. Then take everything you're paying to the smallest debt and add to the second debt. And you keep doing that until you get out of debt. And then once you pay off the last debt, If you have a mortgage, you really don't have to pay your mortgage. There are times, you may need to accelerate, but not necessarily pay it off. It depends on individual circumstances. Then you can now start saving that amount. And that is how I got out of debt. I had 3 loans. I owed a friend some money, I had a circle loan, and I had a bank loan. So I paid my friend off, then I added more to the circle loan. Then when everything was paid, I paid my bank loan. And then I started saving and it was a lot of money. And I was able to take a mortgage. The initial costs, I didn't have to take a loan for that. I had my full deposit, I had my legal fees and everything. And I continued, when I took the mortgage, whatever balance that I had. So I started repaying my mortgage faster right from the beginning. Remember, these are habits we develop. And that's what we are trying to teach our children, to develop the right habits. Because if you start doing it, it will be easy to continue doing it. If you pick the wrong habits, they'll just become magnified. So let's pick the right habits. Now, my latest passion is temperaments. That's the one thing I've been learning and how they affect our money management. I don't know if you've ever done this test. It's called what? I can't remember what it's called. The one that gives choleric, melancholic, it's Myers-Briggs. How many of us know our temperament? Okay, most of us. So this is a force behind a lot of why we do what we do. And it's a God-given temperament. It's been something I've been seeing in me and my daughter. We are very different, and most people will be different. So she's the polar opposite. I'm a choleric. She's a phlegmatic. Yeah, she's a green, I'm a red. So it's opposite. We share a lot of weaknesses. Yeah, so it's easy to collide. She's stubborn, I'm stubborn, like that. But she's also a sanguine and a melancholic. So I like details, I like analysis, I like reflecting. But she's also a happy-go-lucky. So sometimes I'm like, wow, we really talk happy. Because they don't think the way I think. Yeah? Me, when I get money, I'm like, okay, where can I invest it? When she gets money, she's like, where are we going? Now, you might wonder, what is wrong with her? And she's wondering, what is wrong with you? And many conflicts in marriage are not about what you're doing with money. They are just about your different temperament. So the first thing I encourage you is to learn your own temperament and know its strengths and weaknesses. So some temperaments will have a tendency to save. I'm one of them. Others, for cholerics, save and hoard. Yeah, we like just seeing the balance grow. Yeah, it just gives us, we won't even treat ourselves to anything. Others are prone to spending. Others to give generously. And I think sanguines really enjoy it. If they had the money, they also they work hard for their money, they enjoy their money and they give. I think they have a better quality of life compared to us. As we tend to worry a lot, yeah? Even when there's no reason. They are called the worried well. You're very well financially, but you're still worried. Some have a tendency of taking risks. Yeah? I have a recent client, husband and wife. I've not encountered people with a high risk appetite like that. So there's no one to tell the other one, let's slow down. So when they think at doing something, they just go full throttle. Others tend to play too safe, and others are very indecisive. They research, they get everything they need, but they never pull the trigger. So if that's your spouse and you are choleric, you can imagine one will either go ahead and do whatever they need to do, and the other one feels like they are not valued. Now, you need to understand yourself first before you try to understand your children. Okay? So I would say, go look for that test if you don't know your personality. Maybe I can talk a little bit about them. And I don't know if I meant to, let me see if I had something. Sanguines. Their color is usually yellow. They love branded items. They love good things in life. The soft life, yes. Image is important. How they look. They don't leave the house until they have their makeup on and all that. And so if your child has those tendencies, it's important then you show them how to look for sales Let them look, I mean, that's their natural. They don't even know how to be something else. That's who they are. It's like someone telling you to be something you're not. Is it even possible? So you have to help them within where they are. Help them to avoid marketing campaigns. And help them know that a deal is not a deal unless it is something they had planned for. And it just happens to be at a cheaper price. Cholerics, they are goal-oriented. They know what they want. They work hard for it. They make money. Some know how to negotiate. Personally, I do not know how to negotiate. But they're so driven. They can push things. They force things to happen. Help them realize, yeah, it's okay to negotiate, but also be willing to walk away if the other person doesn't want to sell. And help them see how they can treat other people with kindness. They also wonder why other people are slow. Help them realize, my parents are so slow, these other people are so slow. Help them treat other people with kindness. The phlegmatic, some of them like budgeting, but they also like hoarding. And they like shopping. So help them to shop less and to shop with a budget. Some of them will like budgeting and some will not like budgeting. So for those who like shopping, we normally encourage them, decide what you need in the year. Go look at your wardrobe, what do I need? And then you decide, I need 3 shirts, I need 4 trousers, and then go shop for that particular thing. And preferably accumulate some money and go and do that once or twice in a year so that you're not prone to doing shopping a lot. Melancholy, there are those people who love budgeting. I can do a budget every month. But some of them just love budgeting, but they don't come back to review how the budget worked. So budget, but also review. Some will work well with envelope systems. And as they invest, help them not to look at how for example, if they've invested in stock market, let them not look at how the movements are going. You can decide they'll be checking once a month or once every quarter. And then help them manage their fear. Know that we do these things, but these are not the things that provide for us. It is God who actually provides for us. So your children, when they're young, they might exhibit different, they might look like they're choleric, then after some time they see like they're changing. These temperaments come very clear when they are a bit in their teenage and growing into young adults. Don't brand them, you are choleric. No, they just have choleric tendencies. That's not who they are. It doesn't mean they can't do anything about it. So one of the things we help them see is how their strengths would enable them to spend money wisely, but also how manage the weaknesses so that you know I have this blind spot. So if you are phlegmatic who don't like moving, okay, they do the analysis, but they don't actually do it. You show them how that delay. Once you have the full information, you need to step in faith, but you also need to take advantage of an opportunity. Otherwise, you could lose the opportunity. For those who move too fast, the choleric, then they need to slow down a bit so that they're able to look at what could go wrong and all that. So help your children do this test, and I think I'll share a link. There's a website you can actually do that. Help them do it themselves and then also do it with them. So that is what I had on how to help your children manage their money. There's a lot, and I would encourage you to read books. And I will also give, there's a book called Trusted by Matt Bell. He's written a very good book. Unfortunately, you might not be able to get it here, but you can buy a Kindle version or get somebody to bring you. It's a very good book. It's very, very practical. Now, in summary, what are some of the things I'm saying? When your children are very young, one of the things I would want you to consider is memory verse. Remember the memory verse we do? We tend to do memory verse about other topics, but never about money. So there's some memory verse I've given to Bella. I think we have time, you can read them for us. Just on each of those categories, how the children can memorize those verses, and as they keep on thinking about them and you discuss with them, you are instilling these principles in them that with time they'll actually be able to apply them.